MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
Last week on My Fantasy Podcast. I hate to even go here, Orlando, because, God, I can only imagine the response we're about to get. But Dan is really the only one that's been in every playoffs that we've had so far.
I didn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to put that out there to you guys. So I'm glad you brought that up. And, that just brings a nice smile to my face. That's all I'll say. I'll just smile.
I bet it does.
We need a facelift. We're kind of like a 52-year-old woman, and we just need to get it tight. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be getting it tight.
I'm not touching that one. Why you had to go there, but
that's
Dan sending me links to some stupid ass Little game.
Did you watch?
I watched because it was on Facebook. I didn't watch. I watched the intro. I watched the first 5 minutes. Oh my God. Welcome, podcast peeps. How you doing out there? How all yous doing? All you new fans, old fans alike. We appreciate you for tuning in every single week, and the audience is growing. We really appreciate it. The audience has kind of dictated how we do this show, because now you're adding foodie questions in there for us every single week. So we've adapted, and we'll keep on doing it. Whatever you want to do. It's My Fantasy Podcast. From MyFantasySportsTalk.com, which really means it's your fantasy podcast. That's kind of the way it works, right, Dan? I mean, we're kind of throwing it to the peeps, and the peeps tell us what to do. So it's really, when you say My Fantasy Podcast, it's everyone's fantasy podcast. It's yours, mine, everyone's.
And people are fantasizing about soup.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Apparently so.
More on that later. That's a little teaser. Teaser to start off the show.
It is a teaser. And this was a very polite question. Like, hey, I didn't know you guys did this, but since you're doing it, may I throw this in? And so we'll answer it. But big podcast today. Big podcast. So much to talk about in the world of the NFL, of course, the playoffs going on, NBA going on, MLK Day. Hoops everywhere. Why was all the animosity on MLK Day, Dan? I mean, it's like every game had a fight on MLK Day when this should stand for peace. I didn't get it. Just heat everywhere.
Maybe they were a little grumpy playing. Well, I guess it happened later at night, but I was going to say playing in the afternoon. But you lost me. I don't know. It's just disrespectful. Let's just
didn't get their nap in. Good thing, though, you pointed out the Spurs got the early tip, so they were fortunate enough to hit the buffet in the early bird special and catch Wheel of Fortune, as you said.
Yeah. They played like they were 80 years old too, losing to the Hawks. I was pretty surprised at that one, and I put money on both of the podcast, my teammates' teams on MLK Day, and yours, Brandon, came through with the Grizzlies' victory.
Of course they did. They finally put the game back on MLK Day. They moved it to Sunday last year and took a lot of heat over that. But we also got a break because we played the Lakers without Lonzo Ball, which the Lakers are 0-7 this year without Lonzo Ball. Didn't know if you know that little tidbit.
That's what it's like to be a BBB. You know what that's like. So
I opened that I opened that box wide open for you. Help step right into it. But huge rundown today. We're going to bring Orlando Torres in just a second. And our other man in the Buffalo area, Ryan Thomas, wants to get in here and talk a little football and spread his Thomas Take UFC report. We'll do that a little bit later on the show. I am Brandon Reed, and that is Dan Chalk. We are your host. We're going to walk you and guide you through this whole thing. And today, this is what we got on the rundown. So we'll talk NFL playoffs, who won, who's moving on, who disappointed, who surprised, and talk about all that. Plus, something I thought about today is who would make the best replacement for John Gruden on Monday Night Football. That'll be interesting conversation. Then we'll talk MLK Day hoops, wrap that big Monday up of NBA action. We've got NBA mailbag questions. We've got NCAA hoops mailbag questions. We've got a ton of NFL mailbag questions, a little bit of draft to talk about. And of course, like I said, Thomas Tate will come in here and talk about UFC, and we'll also talk about our favorite types of foods. This week, it's going to be soups on the podcast. Mulligatawny, Dan. Mulligatawny.
No soup for you. There we go.
Come back 1 year. Come back season 4 of My Fantasy Podcast, and we'll tell you more about that. But yeah, all that on today's show. Our man from San Ann is back. It's Orlando Torres. Man, I hope you're doing so much better than your Spurs are doing, because we talked about it last week. They're really not doing good. And it ain't getting better with the news that Kawhi's going to be out, I don't know, for a while.
Yeah, he's going to be out for a while. There was talk of possibly him coming back after the All-Star break, but I just don't see it happening. You got to give him what I kind of mentioned earlier, sort of like the Andrew Luck treatment, just, take this thing seriously and just focus on getting them back healthy, even if it's until next season.
And that's the point we're at here, huh? But I mean, kind of like what I was telling you earlier is, honestly, I think everyone's playing, especially in the Western Conference, but everyone's playing for third anyway. I'm not even sure at this late stage, if you got everybody healthy, and Rudy Gay's not even healthy, that you're really going to run up and down the floor with the Rockets or the Warriors. I really don't think so, man.
No.
It's not what you want to hear, but
no, but reality, yeah, no, you're right. At this, I think they're, the Spurs are still going to be able to compete, but if they're going to be able to knock down the Rockets or the Warriors, yeah, they're going to need their guy Kawhi in order to do that. But I completely agree with that. They're not going to get very far without Kawhi. I could see them getting past the first round, but if you're talking about a second or going to the finals, it's just hard to see.
So let's talk about weather in San Antonio. What's your temperatures like? Me and Dan just briefly discussed Orlando today. It got up to a sweltering, I think it reached maybe 15 or 16, but it's been basically 9. The temperature started at 0 and went up 9 times. That's it.
Yeah, no, yesterday, basically the whole state shut down, basically. It was maybe 18 degrees, which is probably nothing for Dan. But of course, you got people in a panic, people treating it like it's the end of the world because we're not used to it down here. You got all these roads closed, schools closed. I didn't go to school yesterday. My son didn't go to school. I didn't even go to work. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. Today it warmed up. It's about 35 outside. It's been like that pretty much all day.
Did you get inclement weather too then? Was there something actually on the roads, falling, sleet, snow, sleet?
Yeah, there was icy. It was ice. I know yesterday, man, I think from 6 a.m. till 1 or 2, there was literally over 140 crashes reported in the city. Pretty crazy, yeah. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, the people warned not to drive and whatever. 140 crashes. It's crazy.
That's when the police invoke that rule where unless it's life-threatening injuries, just move your cars off the street and we'll deal with it tomorrow. I forgot what they call that policy, but that's what they goes by. Unless there's any kind of life-threatening injuries, get the cars out of the road and we'll deal with it tomorrow because we can't possibly respond to that. And you got to think about they're dealing with the inclement weather too. So, yeah, Dan's not impressed though. But Orlando, you see how I'm dressed? Man, this is the first time ever I've done the podcast in something more than just a T-shirt, and I don't like it. I don't like it. And usually I'm okay with winter, but I'm really not this time. It's been too cold. So
yeah, I was expecting the Bill Belichick hoodie from you this time around when it's cold.
I was that close, man. I was that close to pulling out something more. It's okay right now, but it's not something I'd like to continually deal with. That for sure. That's for sure. So, but Dan has no pity over there. But like I was saying, like you said, Orlando, y'all basically the state shut down yesterday. Buffalo, New York area, and any northern, mid-eastern, all through that stretch that's used to weather like this, they're more prepared to deal with it. As far as the salt trucks, they're prepared. I think it's in the city budget every single year to deal with this, whereas in the South, it's not. You just don't have the money in the budget to afford a bunch of weather trucks and salt trucks to salt and sand the streets,
Yeah, it's actually funny because I got family up in Grand Rapids. Whenever I go visit in the winter, I see my aunt and my uncle. They got a what do you call it, Dan? Like a snow blower, like same thing you kind of use for the leaves. I was like, what the hell is this?
What?
I thought it was for leaves, dude. I guess for the snow. I was like, I've never seen it.
Yeah, if you don't have a snowblower up here, and I actually, when I bought my house about 6 years ago, and I didn't get a snowblower until about 2 years. So I dealt 4 years of shoveling, and in Buffalo, it's a sin if you do that. And 1 year where I did not have a snowblower, we got 8 foot of snow in my house. So I dealt with that, and that was rough. So yes, it's a snowblower, and it does wonders. Yeah.
It blows snow.
It blows, not leaves. That's what I thought. I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, Dan actually talked about that on a podcast, I think probably last winter. I don't know. You upgraded snow blowers or you spent a day doing that or something. I do recall that, talking about that on the podcast. But there's your My Fantasy podcast, myfantasysportstalk.com weather reports from the triangular area from New York to Arkansas over to Texas. So there you go. So let's start out, guys, and talk about these wacky playoffs. I told you guys last week, I predicted Pittsburgh and Atlanta in the Super Bowl. That ain't happening. So I got to come up with some kind of new crap this week. I don't know what that's going to be, but Dan, how was your record this week?
I was 2-2 this week. So my undefeated streak came to an end. Obviously, I was with you on Atlanta, and then I was the lone picker of the Saints. So Marcus Williams screwed me. I won't go out calling names, but yeah, I was 2-2. Orlando had the best week of all of us. I think 3-1 was his record. So, and then there's Brandon. So I'll leave it at that.
I am the NFL Pick'em Challenge winner, the king right here. So nothing new over here when it comes to picking in games.
That's right. What did you expect, Dan? I've given up. But we're going to talk about that. We've submitted our picks, or at least submitted them to Dan. It hasn't been published yet for the championship games, conference championship games. So we'll talk about that. I've had to come up with some new stuff altogether. So we'll see how close that is. But Patriots took care of business. We'll start right there over the Titans. No big surprise. The Titans really didn't have no business playing in that game, in my opinion. And it was evident as they now are searching for a new head coach. Right move, Dan? What did you think? Did that kind of surprise you? It kind of shocked a lot of people as I was getting messages on Facebook like, what are they doing? You just won a playoff game and you fire your coach? Yeah, because he wasn't the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with the move. I was kind of surprised by it just because I thought that win over the Chiefs kind of sealed him in for at least another year.
That's what I was afraid of.
I thought that was going to be a bad thing for the Titans. But yeah, I mean, I'm used to him here in Buffalo. You know, he spent some years here coaching the Bills, obviously with little success. But the same issues that plagued him in Buffalo plagued him in Tennessee, and that's the offense. He just, whether he's stubborn, but his offensive system, his coordinators that he hires, just honestly, they don't get it done. And if you have a franchise quarterback that Marcus Mariota really is, and he regresses, badly, 13 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. I mean, that's terrible.
And now we're getting into a critical time for Mariota. I mean, this is the peak of what you're going to be in your career. The next 2 years need to be huge for you, not regressing.
Yeah, and you can see the flashes. I mean, that playoff game over the Chiefs, Mariota definitely helped him. That Derrick Henry was another factor. But, I mean, you can see that Mariota has that capability. You just have to put him in a system where he's successful. And I don't think Tennessee did that very well. So that's why, as you alluded to it when we've been talking, Brandon, is they're probably going to look for an offensive guy, although they've been contacting defensive assistants from what I've seen. But I think they need to get an offensive guy in there to kind of shape that offense around Marcus Mariota.
Yeah. But I guess Josh McDaniels was more enticed by the Indianapolis situation straight from the get-go. So I'm not sure that was ever a possibility. I like that, although I kind of think Josh McDaniels may make a better OC in the long run. Not sure he's the head guy, that type of personality. I don't know, but that's up for debate. But so straight from Nashville, this is what I'm hearing, Dan. As you mentioned, Mike Vrabel. I don't really want an ex-linebacker to teach my franchise quarterback how to be a better quarterback. I don't know. I mean, unless he comes up with a hell of a stud OC or a quarterback whisperer like Sean McVay was for golf. But Mike Vrabel, Steve Wilkes, a couple of these guys I'm not even really familiar with, to be honest with you. Matt LaFleur, John DeFilippo. Steve Wilkes. Oh, I thought that wasn't that the bouncer dude on the Jerry Springer show. The guy
The Wilkos, Steve Wilkos.
Okay. So I don't know. I kind of like that dude, a TV star. So bring him in. Yeah, clean it up like he did the Jerry Springer show. But yeah, I don't know. But something I'm not really crazy about any of those names. Dan would probably know more about the coaching trees for those guys and if they would fit Tennessee and what they need to do. I mean, I really think Dick LeBeau did his job on defense this year. They played in the mud, but they weren't giving up a lot of scores and a lot of touchdowns. He definitely flipped that switch on them. But that offense was just horrid to watch. Like you said, Mariota regressed. And we found out today, throw another name. I didn't see this in the Nashville report, but another name to throw your hat in, to throw in the hat now is Todd Haley, who was announced today that he will not be back in Pittsburgh. So maybe you find a head coach and invite him on as the OC. Maybe he gets another head coaching gig. I don't know. Wasn't he in Kansas City before Andy Reid? Is that where he was?
Yep. Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you think about that, Dan? Or of the names I just read to you coming out of Nashville, of the top candidates?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really impresses me too much, to be honest with you. And Todd Haley, I mean, he bombed as a head coach. I mean, he's kind of in that role that you might see McDaniels as more of a better OC than a head coach. You know, I don't know really who's out there and available that's willing to go to Tennessee. I'm
they're
sure
kind of getting behind the eight ball because these other teams are making moves like your Bears, the Giants, Indianapolis. So what are they waiting on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of because Mularkey kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, they said in his press conference it was part of the reason why he was let go, which I was kind of surprised John Robinson came out to say something like that, because that seems kind of, I don't know, childish in a way. So that was a little odd, but I mean, they're probably formulating their list. I mean, it's looking like a skew of defensive guys. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with, but I'm kind of at a loss of where exactly their direction is going, and that's surprising because we've praised John Robinson for the last 2 years on this podcast on how good of a job that he's done. So,
well, I think what I do like about the John Robinson thing is I think that he had the foresight and the vision to know that Mularkey was not the guy. We need to do something here. But I went to bed Sunday night with the notice of them working on an extension. And then early Monday morning, no, we've changed our minds. Something happened there. But it's like I told you, I guess Monday, that I don't really want a boneheaded ex-linebacker being the coach and directing this team going forward. I do not think that's what they need right now. You need a Sean McVay type. I know they're not out there everywhere, but if he can do what he did with Jared Goff, then, man, you got a wealth of talent in that Tennessee roster that John Robinson has brought over now. Derrick Henry's going to be the man going into next year, and Marcus Mariota's got all the skill set. I think he's healthy now, coming off the broken leg from a year ago. So it needs to turn around real quickly offensively, because this team should be a whole lot better offensively than they were. But so we got more NFL coaching carousel news to talk about when we bring Ryan in on the show a little bit later, as Ryan Thomas from Thomas Take will join us. But anyway, moving on with the playoffs, no big surprise there. Patriots do beat the Titans. Pittsburgh goes down, man. Couldn't stop anybody. Just could not stop anybody. Were you a little bit shocked at that game, Orlando?
I wasn't a little shocked because typically this is what we've seen from Pittsburgh for the past couple of years. You know, they got a good group of solid guys, but they just haven't been able to get it done in the playoffs. You know, you got Brown, Bell, Ben, and they still, for whatever reason, as good as those guys are, you know, some of the best players at their position, they still can't get over the hump. It was so no, I wasn't too surprised.
But did you see Jacksonville putting up damn near 50 on them to beat them in Pittsburgh?
I mean, well, something had to change. Blake Bortles, surprisingly, he played a little bit better. He didn't have to depend so much on the defense. I do think Pittsburgh caught him a bit off guard, a little bit in the game. I do think Jacksonville looked like they got a little too comfortable after the first quarter because Big Ben, I think he still had over like 450 yards, something like that, 4 or 5 touchdowns. So I do think Jacksonville, they surprised me towards the end of the game because I think they just got a little bit comfortable. But I did see the Jags winning, but I didn't think the scoring would be this high.
Dan, you obviously had Jacksonville winning. You told me that Pittsburgh was not the team. I don't know, man. A perfect storm, I guess, but I didn't see this game going down this way.
Yeah, I mean, you can call me a Steelers hater, I guess, but I'm not impressed with the team that they put together. I think Big Ben is overrated. I like Le'Veon Bell. I've been outspoken about Antonio Brown not being the number one wide receiver. He always shuts me up about it, but in this game and specifically, I didn't think he was going to be 100% healthy. I was a little surprised by the score, but ultimately, I thought Jacksonville was the better team, and they also showed it. In this divisional round and in week 5 when they beat them down even worse.
And
worse than that week.
That's why I just didn't think that was going to happen again. I think that's one of those things like, beat me once, shame on me, beat me twice, or however that goes. Beat me once, shame on you, beat me twice, shame on me. I just didn't think that was going to go down like that. Especially being in Pittsburgh and you crank up the intensity with it being a playoff game. So I was wrong. One of my Super Bowl predictions is out. I got to come up with some new stuff, like I said. So let's move on to the NFC. I was kind of with you guys that the winner of that New Orleans, Minnesota game was going to have a great, great chance to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, and I completely believe it now. The game was 17-0 at halftime. Were you a little bit worried about your Saints pick then, although they did come back, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I did. At halftime, I kind of shut it off for a little bit and didn't rejoin it until the fourth quarter, basically. So I didn't think very highly of the Saints watching that first half. I know in the first quarter, Drew Brees had 3 or 4 yards passing total. So it was bad, especially if you did what I did and put some money on the Saints. Luckily, I took the points and I actually bought extra points, so I ended up covering. But after the first half, I was not a believer in anything that they were doing offensively, and defensively, they weren't doing much either, although they pulled together a little bit in the second quarter.
Yep. And Orlando's MVP pick came through. Case Keenum with a huge, miraculous throw down the sideline, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I guess you probably like that result, Orlando.
Yeah, no, my guy, he just keeps backing me up. I mean, if I was a little bit shocked or caught off guard by anything in this game, I knew it was going to be a defensive battle early on, but it was a running game in New Orleans. The Saints usually are a different team on the road. Same thing with Brees. He's a different quarterback on the road than he is at home. And I thought Kamara and Ingram will get a little bit more involved in what they actually combine for. I know Kamara still had a touchdown to take the lead late in the fourth before the 3 minutes happened with all that craziness. But I expected a little bit more, more carries from both of those guys.
When you face Minnesota, your game plan changes a little bit, maybe midstream. That defense is solid. So the other game, and we got a Philly fan checking in, letting us know about it, that we all disrespected Philadelphia. I'm not sure any of us picked Philadelphia. Did you pick Philadelphia, Orlando?
Nope. Hell no, I didn't.
See, we were completely disrespecting and dismissing Philadelphia's chances against Atlanta. I mean, it makes sense. They were the number 1 seed, and Atlanta was just not quite the same team from last year all season long. But I thought once they got into the playoffs, they could really take advantage. But Philadelphia beat them, and the Philadelphia fans are letting us know about it for sure. So I don't know. I was a little bit surprised by that. I had Atlanta beating Philadelphia, honestly. So what was your thoughts on that game, Dan?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised by it. I thought, I mean, Philly putting up 15 points, yeah, I can see that happening. It was more Atlanta scoring only 10. I know the Eagles now they're relying more on their defense than ever before. I just didn't see them stopping Matt Ryan and company, and they did. I mean, Devontae Freeman, he had a touchdown, but I think he only had 7 yards rushing in the entire game. So if you can't get the run and you're able to limit, the other receivers outside of Julio Jones, you only put up 10 points on the board and you lose the game. So I was definitely surprised by it. It's shocking. Like the way I look at this conference championship game coming up is, by the point spread, it's 3.5. I mean, the Vikings are favorites. But it's just something about this game that makes me feel like the Eagles could shock the world and make it to the Super Bowl, which I hate either way because I'm still not sold on Case Keenum and obviously not on Nick Foles. And it's mind blowing that one of those two quarterbacks is going to be getting to the Super Bowl. And it's just weird to me. And that probably puts an exclamation point on this NFL season, which has just been odd to begin with.
It's thrown me way the hell off. I'm not going to lie about it. I mean, you can look back at my picks and tell that. But we got a question about the Super Bowl matchup from a Philly fan coming up a little bit later. So we'll wait and talk a little bit more about the actual matchup that we see coming up in just a little bit. So fun time, guys. I threw this in there, probably threw you for a curveball today, late in the afternoon, but I want to talk about, because I don't think we've never discussed it on the podcast since it was announced. We didn't get a chance to last week. And I'm not sure that it's been talked about enough because this is a pretty big deal. But who's going to replace John Gruden in the booth for Monday Night Football? It's big. I think he's been a pretty good personality and done fairly well in the booth. A long laundry list of names that have been in there. They had the experiment with what's the guy from not Wilbon, but the other guy,
Tony Kornheiser. I loved me some Kornheiser.
I don't think it worked out. I think the consensus was that it didn't really work out. But anyway,
no, you have to be a unique individual to get Tony Kornheiser's dry humor.
So I'm dealing with two Cowboys fans here, and I got to know that you're probably going to put Tony Romo's name in that hat. But seriously, just if you've given any thought to this, who would you think would be really good in the booth for Monday Night Football? Who would be a pretty good replacement? I've seen a lot of guys. Randy Moss, and my first thought about Randy Moss is it ain't NASCAR. I mean, Randy Moss is the most country talking dude. I'm not sure I could really deal with his accent too much on a Monday Night Football booth. That's just me. I mean, I just don't know if I can deal with that. There's a couple of guys I'm not really familiar with, but anyway, what do you think, Dan? Who would be a nice replacement? I got to be honest with you. I don't know if what's Peyton's plan is. Peyton Manning could do so many different things if he wanted to right now. He would probably be good in the booth. I think your Tony Romo would be pretty good. Although he took a lot of heat over the playoff game. There were a lot of people were saying he flopped in the playoff game or his performance was horrible. I don't know. I didn't really pay attention. And then Jay Cutler's name keeps coming back. I'm like, no. I shot a bear. So you tell me, Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote three names down, and I did not. One of them wasn't Tony Romo. It didn't even occur to me that he would go there. I would imagine CBS would lock him up with some type of compete clause where he wouldn't be able to jump networks.
What kind of deal was it though? Was this not kind of an introductory 1-year trial type of contract?
No, I think they locked him up with like a 5-year deal. Yeah, okay. I think they signed him long term and said you're our guy. So good move by CBS there. Despite the playoff game, I don't know, that's baloney. But number 3 on my list was Randy Moss. I love that guy, man. If you ever watch Sunday NFL Countdown leading up to the games on Sunday, Randy Moss does it. I just like him.
He's a character, but I'll be honest with you. His accent's a little too country thick for me, to be honest with you.
You be from Arkansas and you're saying that, but okay.
I'm not from Arkansas. I'm from Memphis. I don't necessarily fit in all around me here. But I'm just saying that, dude. How do you grow up? Where did you grow up? It was in Virginia,
West Virginia, yeah. West Virginia.
and go to Marshall and come out talking like that. I don't know. I don't know. I like his personality. I do like Randy Moss. Like I said, I think his thick accent would fit in a lot better with NASCAR instead of Monday Night Football. But continue.
And the other two names that are on the list are Louis Riddick. I just like him. I think he's smart. He's able to articulate the game. He's always up for general manager openings. So who knows if that's something that he'll want to do, but I think he would be very well spoken in the booth. And the other one is Steve Young. I just like the way he explains the game, and he has a weekly segment on PTI on ESPN that I just love. They give him 5 minutes. And he just talks to the game of football, basically. And I think he does it very well.
He would be good. And I'm not sure that I saw his name in the hat, just from the several articles of candidates that I saw. But I do think he works for the NFL Network right now, doesn't he?
No, I think he might be. I think he's with ESPN.
Yeah, he's with ESPN.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Orlando? Whose names are in that hat, or who would you like to see? Or hear?
Well, I wrote on two names. One of the guys I think I would like to see who I think the players respected, and he's a very intelligent guy in breaking down the games. He was Bruce Arians. He says he's done with football. He's retired. I mean, why not be cozy in that booth and call the game if he's done with coaching? I think that'll be a great guy to listen to break down the game. And another guy is more, I guess, something I would like to see personally. This is probably far-fetched, but Pat McAfee. Former punter. I think he's a great follow on social media. He's pretty funny, but he's also pretty intelligent too when it comes to calling the game. You wouldn't need a sense to understand dry humor because he's a very funny guy. But that's more for me. But I think Bruce Arians would be a great fit.
All right. I like a lot of those names. We'll see. I'm thinking way outside the box. You think yours is a little bit far-fetched, Orlando? I'm thinking way outside the box, but this dude would be perfect. It would transcend Monday Night Football into a different realm of entertainment. Any guesses?
Kramer.
There you go. That's along those lines, but no. Frank Caliendo, because you would have everybody in the booth for Monday Night Football. If you wanted John Madden, you get John Madden. If you wanted John Gruden, you get John Gruden. If you wanted Charles Barkley's there. He does everybody. That dude would be so entertaining in the Monday Night Football booth or in anything. I could just listen to him for hours talk about anything. I don't care what the show is. So I say give it a shot, man. I'm of course your X's and O's are not there, but honestly, to me, I'm not listening to. I mean, you've heard Chris Collinsworth do color commentary. I don't really care about former players doing color commentary. I'm not listening to your X's and O's. I love Hubie Brown to death over what he did for the Grizzlies. I had season tickets that year. He won Coach of the Year. And I love him to death, but I hate listening to him do color commentary because he's like a 1958 military math instructor. Yes, he's smart and breaking the game down, but I don't care about that. I'm not even listening to your X's and O's. I'm watching the game. And Frank Caliendo would bring so much to that Monday Night Football booth. Like I said, it'd be a special guest in the booth every single Monday night, every single week, every other play if you really wanted it to. I think that'd be hilarious. And I'd give him a shot, though. Maybe bring a 3-man booth. Get your former player, Steve Young and Frank Caliendo. There you go. I like that a lot. So we'll see what happens, but we'll keep up with that. So let's move on. We'll talk some hoops coming up next. I know Orlando was watching MLK Day hoops. It was fights everywhere. What's going on MLK Day, a day that's supposed to stand for peace and progression, but the NBA didn't get the memo. We'll talk about that next. You are listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Thank you. It's episode 2, season 3. We're in 2018, believe it or not. Our lives are flashing before our eyes. It's going quick, but here we are, season 3. Hope you enjoyed the tweaks that we're doing to the podcast, the tweaks that are coming up to the website. If you have any suggestions or anything you would like to see, then please let us know. Contact myself or Dan, or contact the website. Contact us on social media. Our Twitter handles are under our supers there, under our names that flash up on the screen. So pause it, take a good look at our face, and write down those Twitter handles and send us your feedback. We'd appreciate it. So NBA, MLK Day Hoops. Memphis always takes part of that. Love seeing Memphis play MLK Day games. It's especially good there with the National Civil Rights Museum and everyone who always tours that every single year. The Lakers were in town this year. That game went off, I guess, without incident, other than Lonzo Ball didn't play, and the Lakers are 0-7 without Lonzo Ball this year. And Grizzlies won that pretty handily. It was the kind of the nightcap where all the fireworks happened as Chris Paul made his return to LA and the Clippers and brought Trevor Ariza with him and James Harden. But crazy story going on there about what happened after the game. So, but Orlando, what did you think about MLK Day Hoop? Started off early with your Spurs tipping off. And then ended with that finale. Yeah, you probably don't want to talk about that game too much, do you?
Yeah, well, whatever. I didn't expect it, especially to the Hawks. Oh, whatever. I mean, but overall, it was a great day of basketball. Usually every year, they start early. It's always been a tradition for the NBA, and this year, kind of like what you said too, there was kind of ejections going around. No, Simmons was ejected. Westbrook against the Kings, he was ejected, back-to-back technicals. You had Carmelo barking. Then the late games with players getting into each other. Overall, the basketball was there, and it was pretty exciting and entertaining as well.
Dan, your impressions, and you probably did not stay up for that finale of that Houston at LA game, because I didn't even stay up for the second half because it started too late. So I know you didn't, but your reaction to the game and the aftermath of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even followed it completely because I don't even understand it completely what went wrong. I saw all these different reports, so it's kind of an ugly situation for the NBA. I mean, something that they got to control. I just saw that the punishments just got handed down, and it's Ariza and Griffin, I think, got 2 games. Ariza and Gerald Green got 2 games, and nobody else so far has been suspended. They said no punishments for Blake Griffin, Harden, or Chris Paul. So,
well, I heard that I think Harden and even Chris Paul were trying to be the mediators. Yeah, Trevor Ariza is the one who wanted more, and Chris Paul knew a back way into the locker room.
See, that I believe.
Yeah, that I believe. That's such a punk move by Chris Paul that I would totally believe. Hey guys, I know the back way through the laundry chute. So, that I believe. But yeah,
so I mean that was definitely interesting. But I mean, I watched the earlier games, the afternoon, early Eastern games. I was all over. I watched the Hornets actually beat the Pistons, which I was kind of surprised by. And then I just watched Orlando Spurs completely melt down and not be able to stop the Atlanta Hawks. Dwayne Dedmon just dominated everything, and he was a former Spur, so that one had to hurt even more.
Yeah, it's one of those revenge games. It did hurt. I couldn't believe what I was watching. After that, I just started letting the Shiners flow like water. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
The Shiner Bach?
Yes, sir.
I mean, the ugliness even continued last night, guys, with Aaron Aflalo getting involved in, I forgot who it was, the other guy.
Edgelenka or something like that.
For Minnesota.
Yeah, something weird.
And a game which, surprise, 13 win Orlando team beat Minnesota last night. So, but Aflalo got put in a headlock last night. So a lot of flare-ups, I don't know, it's not even the All-Star break. These teams are, fighting literally for playoff position. It's getting a little heated in the wintertime. But to me, honestly, I think the NBA could use a little bit of that. But what I don't like is watching college last night. I believe it was the Louisville Notre Dame game, and a player came down with the ball and just kind of was clearing space out like that. And the other guy flopped, like he got hit in the chin. They went to the review booth. They went to the sideline to review this to see if there's going to be a flagrant foul for like 4 or 5 minutes. It's so weak. Move on. Let's just play ball. These guys ain't 4-year-olds. They're going to be okay, Play ball. Sick of all this. MLK Day. But hoops and Grizzlies won. Grizzlies won. So I'm always thankful for that. But although they played possibly the only team worse than them in the West, especially without Lonzo Ball. But we do have NBA mailbag questions, and we're going to start out right here. So this one comes from Benji Wilson. And after last night, this is a good one. Are the Cavs no longer the team to beat in the East? They suck it hard lately, really hard. Benji, man, you ain't going to get much argument from me right now because these numbers are proving it. They've lost their last 4. They're 2 of their last 10. They're scoring 109 points, but giving up 108 points per game. They're just not good. And the problem is they're just old. They got way too many role players. There's no one LeBron can count on anymore. I mean, Kevin Love is up and down, but no one else you can count on. Tristan Thompson's not a low post enforcer. J.R. Smith is wild, man. I'm sitting. J.R. Smith is playing too many minutes, in my opinion. He throws up wild shots, and he's just not the J.R. Smith that we used to know. And Isaiah Thomas, man, he is a scorer. He can fill it up, but he is way undersized. So you got a backcourt of J.R. Smith and Isaiah Thomas that LeBron is having to lean on. That's not going to make it very far in the playoffs. And they're old. They lack defensive efficiency. And I'm a little concerned for them. Possibly Boston could knock them off in the East, but if they're going to represent the East this year, then it's going to be a cakewalk for the West, in my opinion, unless they do something pretty drastic before trade deadline. Marc Gasol's name has been mentioned, and after the bad loss the other night, they really are trying to force management to make a trade and do something, as they really didn't do last year, make a big, strong, aggressive move before the trade deadline and possibly give up one of those number 1 picks. They got Brooklyn's number 1 pick, I think. So Marc Gasol, but also on that radar, Anthony Davis, possibly DeMarcus Cousins, one of those big men from New Orleans, or DeAndre Jordan. So they need to do something. I just don't know exactly what it is, but this team is just not good, despite the pretty good record. I guess still 3rd in the East, but when I look at their team, Dan, I think it's thin and not very talented. And like I said, a bunch of role players and no one that LeBron can count on. Aging Dwayne Wade, it's just not there.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you. And I mean, to answer the question flat out, I would say right now, the way this roster is constructed, no, I don't expect them to get out of the East, where going into the season, I thought the opposite of that. But the way Boston is playing, and rumors that they're going to attempt to make a big deal as well.
Toronto is solid.
Yeah. Yep. But I'm all about Boston. That's the train that I would ride. And just to add on to that, Cleveland, everything that you said, I completely agree with. And then add on the whole Derrick Rose drama. I mean, when he was brought in, I mean, he was going to be somewhat of that replacement for Kyrie, at least until Isaiah Thomas came back fully healthy, which I don't even think he is yet.
And how many times have we heard Derrick Rose, he took a hiatus and found his passion for the game again? I mean, we've heard that 3 or 4 times. I mean, I'm done hearing that. I'm not sure the dude's very stable.
Ricky Williams of the NBA is the way I view Derrick Rose right now. Just kind of going off on his own and doing his own thing. And yeah, I think I want to play basketball today.
And it's not even injuries regard. I mean, even if the dude, we're talking about mental stuff, just state of mind, maybe it's something dealing with the injuries, or maybe that's what started it all, but we're not even talking about health right now. We're talking about just lapses, just not passionate about the game, just walking away. You never know when he's going to walk away.
Yeah, I mean, constant mental health days or something. But he's supposed to return, I guess, either tonight or tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when he does come back. But it's not like he's going to really solve any of their needs that they have, because it's kind of a plethora. And I don't know if you guys saw the report today, but some of the Cavaliers teammates said that LeBron is stat chasing, waiting for the pass to only set up an assist, not passing early in the clock and stuff like that. So I wouldn't view LeBron as kind of a stat patter, but supposedly his teammates are going behind his back and saying that.
He can't trust any of them. I mean, seriously, I've watched several Cavs games this year. He cannot trust those dudes. I wouldn't be passing much at all, to be honest with you. Orlando?
Yeah, then the other report with Isaiah, I don't know if y'all saw the report that came out earlier, Isaiah Thomas saying that reps in the game is the only way he's going to get better and healthier because the Cavs don't practice. So him taking a shot right there, uh, saying that the Cavs don't practice, and you got LeBron saying that they got to buckle down on defense and stuff. I think LeBron's a part of the problem too. As much as I love LeBron, and that's pretty much all the Cavs have. I do think he's a bit of a problem. Whatever happened with Kyrie, whether he ran him out or something's going on where he doesn't have the support. Those guys are not going to help LeBron, win another title with that group. But I do think something's going on too, where LeBron has to sit down and think and tell himself like, "Hey, I'm part of this problem too." When you got guys going behind his back. Not that long ago, everybody wanted to go play with LeBron, whether it was with Miami or now with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I do think LeBron's a part of the problem, and they're gonna have to make a move before the trade deadline if they do hope to beat Boston, Toronto, and then you got the Heat right behind them. And you got to imagine that Eric Spoelstra will love to knock LeBron out of the playoffs from him leaving Miami. So, yeah, it's a mess going down in Cleveland.
So, and the other night I was watching the game, and honestly, I thought Jeff Green should have been getting more involved. I mean, if there's anyone on that team outside Kevin Love that can fill up buckets to me, that I think should maybe have the ball a little bit more in their hand is probably Jeff Green, and he was just kind of a pedestrian out there. And that's one dude I think I would be able to count on the offensive set, on the half-court offensive set. And like I said, he was pedestrian out there. So the chemistry's not there. They're aging a whole bunch of veteran role players. They can't play defense. I'm worried about their backcourt being made up of Isaiah Thomas and J.R. Smith. I don't think it's there. Thanks for the question, though, Benji Wilson. Got another one here that's going to tie into this same scenario. And this one comes from Steve Greenwich. Who are the biggest names to get moved at the trade deadline? And will they be going to the Cleveland Cavaliers? Yeah, like Orlando just said, the Cavaliers, especially after what I've been hearing, over the last several days, they've got beat by 30 twice the last 3 or 4 games. So one of them was almost 40. Who was it? Was it the Timberwolves that beat them that bad? Somebody.
Yeah, I think it was like 37, something like that. But the Timberwolves put a beat down on them.
I mean, that's not a team. I mean, you would never see the Golden State Warriors lose by 30, much less almost 40. You don't even see them lose by 20. Championship medal teams just don't lose like that, and Cleveland just doesn't have it. So, yes, as far as what we're hearing is they're trying to put pressure on management to get rid of one of those picks, to do something at this trade deadline. And a couple of names I mentioned before, it appears to be they're trying to target a big man, something to kind of make up that difference. Because they're playing Kevin Love a lot of times at center, and even Golden State has a lot better center options than that when you talk about David West, JaVale McGee, Zaza Pachulia. I know none of them really play a whole lot of minutes, but they're true centers, and they play them when they need to. Steve Kerr fits them in the right situation, and it works. But DeAndre Jordan, Anthony Davis, like I said, even DeMarcus Cousins, I don't know which one of those pieces may need to move if New Orleans wants to move them. But then Marc Gasol, I'm leaning towards Marc Gasol may not survive. I don't know. The Grizzlies keep tanking. I'm not sure if they're sold on moving off of Gasol. But at this point, the value is probably as high as it's going to get. Me personally, as a Grizzlies fan, I'm kind of souring on Gasol. I don't know. He just doesn't play. I don't know, man. He seems like he's playing soft as of late, turning it over, just not being clutch, So I don't know. I'm not sure he would do the Cavs much good at this point, but those are just some of the names. But one the key name here that you may look to get moved, Lonzo Ball. I guess it just depends on how much LeVar spends time in Lithuania over the next couple of weeks. But be careful. Be careful, Lonzo. You'll be on the trading block if you're down to zip it.
No.
You think I'm playing? I'm not. Of course not. Not this year, but within 2 years, you think I'm playing? Magic will trade.
You be playing.
Lonzo.
You be playing.
I don't be playing.
You be playing.
I ain't playing.
Yeah, you playing. Yeah,
Lonzo just hopes that his brothers and his dad stay in Lithuania as much as they can to take the pressure off him, so that he doesn't have to hide from Magic Johnson in the Lakers practice facility.
Have you been getting my Valstukas game
Dan,
reminders?
stop sending me those links. I do not care. I think you have an important message for me. Every time I open it, I see some crazy church league. Stop sending me the links, Dan. I do not care. I did notice the views are going down. They're not like that first game.
Well, I'm watching, and it was actually you missed one because LiAngelo threw a deep pass to LaMelo. I think I got those right. The older one threw it to the younger one, and he tried to alley-oop it off the backboard to himself, and he missed the dunk. So I thought you might have enjoyed that. But it's
LaMelo doesn't have the greatest hops. I understand he's only maybe 17 now, but he's not a very great dunker. I see a lot of 16-year-olds flushing it a lot harder and better than he can. So I'm telling you, the NBA talent is none of the family. Lonzo is the only one.
Anyways, back to trade deadline. Well, we got our BBB talking, hashtag it. So, I mean, the only name that I'm really keeping an eye on, obviously Marc Gasol, but Anthony Davis. I just keep hearing reports that New Orleans will finally let him go. We'll see if that's actually the case.
But why not DeMarcus Cousins? Isn't he the one whose deal is expiring this year, and they were afraid he may walk?
Yes, but I think you're going to get the best package. Supposedly, from what I at least heard, Boston was willing to offer for Anthony Davis rather than DeMarcus Cousins. And I heard a report today that Boston's willing to offer Jason Tatum, Al Horford, and multiple future first-round picks for Anthony Davis. So if that's the case, I mean, I think if you're the Pelicans, you're not going to get a much better deal with that because it looks like Jason Tatum's pretty legit. He's going to be a superstar eventually in this league at some point. So, if you don't think you can re-sign Anthony Davis long term, that might be an option to happen this season.
Well, I'm going to make this proclamation real quick too, Dan, as I'm going to lose this week in fantasy basketball because Casey Birch has, I'm pretty sure I'm playing Casey Birch, and he has Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis, over the last 2 games, has scored like 80 fantasy points. Yeah, it's like 80 fantasy points. He's murdering me, but it has something to do with the schedule. That's the thing. That's why I keep telling you as far as fantasy basketball is I'm waiting to the playoffs because the scheduling is so messed up. No, the scheduling is messed up.
Sounds like an excuse. Me and Orlando are going at it this week, and Orlando's going to take an L. So that's what happens when you face last year's champ.
It has a lot to do with the scheduling, though. There's days when there's more days this week than the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I only have like 2 or 3 players playing. It's scheduling, man. So I don't know. I'm stacking for the playoffs. I'll see you in the playoffs.
You see that? You guys see that? For those watching the podcast, that's the world's smallest violin. Singing a tune for Brandon right there. Got that? Okay.
Yeah, and 1-0. Yeah, I'll see you in the playoffs.
I already won it.
Playoffs.
I'm going for back-to-back.
Ain't happening. Orlando.
Nah, I mean he's already talking about giving me an L. He's not like he's blowing me out of the water. I'm right there. The score's not too far out of reach. But so hopefully I could pull a little magic.
Nobody
come
reaches
Sunday.
my scores every week. You're putting up a great fight, Orlando. You would beat everybody else in the league this week. It's just tough. You're going up against last year's champ.
I think Dan's got a little lucky this year with some of his talents. Like Lou Williams. Come on now, Dan. You didn't know Lou Williams is going to be that murderous beast he is.
Me and Lou go way back.
I'm sure you do.
You guys shouldn't even start to call me. Stop calling me Dan. Just call me Champ. Okay? Deal? Champ?
What were we talking about? Orlando, do you want to the trade deadline?
Yeah, but it was the trade deadline is what we're talking about. Anthony Davis, all that stuff. Hey, speaking of Anthony Davis, I don't know how realistic that is of him going to Boston. I did watch the game last night with him and the Celtics, and there was a lot of chance for Anthony Davis, and he did put on a show on the Viacante game. It was like 45 points, but that was a hell of a game. But are there any names I'm thinking of come trade deadline? I've heard Kemba Walker. I don't know what's going on over there with Charlotte, but going back to the Cavs, I do think DeAndre Jordan is probably a realistic move going to the Cavs. I know he's in the middle of his 5-year contract, so I don't know how that's going to work. But the Cavs, just like what you and Dan mentioned earlier, they need a guy down low in the post. They need a guy like DeAndre. There's reports that they're willing to move Tristan Thompson from. even though DeAndre Jordan has came out and publicly said that he'd rather go to Houston if he's going to be traded because he wants to reunite back with Chris Paul. But I don't think Houston needs a guy like him. They got Clint Capella playing pretty well and some other guys in that rotation. So I don't know. The Clippers are going to stay faithful to DeAndre, but him to Cleveland does seem pretty realistic.
Yep, we'll see. But we got a little bit of time. As we're not even really, we get several weeks before even the All-Star break, but we'll see what happens. Pretty interested to see what happens to those Grizzlies because, like I said, at this point, I could go either way on Marc Gasol, and I'm not even sure the franchise even knows exactly if they figured it out yet. But let's move on and talk a little college hoops. This question comes from Connor Beeks. Are there any favorites in college basketball this season? There seems to be more parity this year than any previous year. And Connor, yes, I 100% agree. I can usually figure out around this time, or at least by February-ish, who I think is really going to be in it. I nailed it last year with North Carolina. North Carolina was the best team all year long, and I knew Gonzaga was special. But this year, I really don't know. But I'll tell you what, the few teams I have listed here is I like Arizona a lot because I've always liked Alonzo Trier and what he does. But they got that super freshman, that 7'1" dude, DeAndre Ayton, who is averaging right now 20 and 11. So I like that as a team that could really do damage in the tournament with a superstar guard like that and a big 7'1" dude and a great coach too. So Michigan State, they're going to be there. They will be in my Final Four. I really don't care what happens from here on out in the regular season. I'm going to have Michigan on that Final Four line. Bridges doing everything. They got the Jaren Jackson kid averaging 11, 6, and 3 blocks per game right now. And then the other teams, Duke with Bagley, and Grayson Allen, and another name. And I guess this is how I know I feel like I'm getting old, Dan, because I remember Gary Trent, the original, for Michigan State. Now his son is playing for Duke as well. So they're loaded. Villanova, they're the number 1 team in the country. And Purdue with the big 7-footers, Haas and Harms. So that's just kind of names I'm looking out for right now. Still a little bit early for me, but I really do believe my Final Four will be consisting of 4 of those teams that I just mentioned. Damn.
Yeah, I'm not. I do like Arizona. I watch a lot of Pac-12 basketball. Obviously, being a Buffs fan, but also being a Buffs fan and watching my Colorado
they beat
team,
Arizona, didn't they?
Beat Arizona. I mean, and trust me, this Colorado team is not very good. So the way they were able to, I mean, they dominated Arizona.
Arizona lost 3 games in a row early in the season. So they've had a stretch where they lost 3 straight and then they bounced back until that, more recent loss to Colorado.
I mean, they definitely have the talent, and Sean Miller's a great coach. So I'm sure they'll put it together for tournament time. But they haven't impressed me too much this regular season. I had a couple names on my list are similar to yours, Villanova. I really do like Purdue more than just the 7-footers, but if you watch them, the Edwards, they got 2 Edwards, Vince and Carson, who are just dominant scorers, and they really help kind of feed off each other with those big men that they have. So I do think Purdue they're going to definitely be in my Final Four. I had Duke there. One team that I really love just watching and who I think is going to be a sleeper team, and that's Texas Tech. Out of the Big 12, they might not only win the conference and finally end Kansas's reign, but what I like about them most is they have 5 seniors that start. So anytime you're starting 5 seniors in college basketball come in NCAA tournament time, I love that about them.
You've seen that. I think it was Middle Tennessee State that made the run either last year or year before last. It did it by senior leadership. That happens all the time. South Carolina, that's how they did it last year. Yeah. So
I like them a lot as a big sleeper team. And 2 other teams that just impressed me come out of the Big 12, which is surprising because we've given so much love to the SEC, on this podcast. And I don't think we've named an SEC team really yet. But I
think they've come back down to earth a little bit. I think there's a lot of good teams. Up, though. Now, a lot of good teams.
Auburn only has 1 loss, which is surprising. But I have West Virginia, who just lost to Kansas. I watched that game last night. They gave up a big lead in the second half. But the way they play defense, you never know. I mean, they can shut you down 1 game, and you can only score 39 points. And then the other one is Oklahoma. Trae Young, he's special. If I were an NBA GM, he'd be my number one pick. I know you have guys like Ayton and Bagley, but Trae, he gets compared to Steph Curry, and I hate Steph Curry, but he shoots like him. He can shoot from anywhere on the court, and I think he's a better passer than Steph Curry, the way he dishes out those assists. So anytime he has the ability to go off. Now, in yesterday's game, Oklahoma lost to TCU, and he had a Big 12 record, 12 turnovers. So he's still a freshman, so he's still working some things out. But if he's hot come tournament time, watch out for Oklahoma.
And a couple of the blue bloods that I'd say don't have going very far this year is I'm not sold on Kansas this year at all. Kansas is just pretty thin to me, to be honest with you. And Kentucky, this may be the worst Kentucky team they've had in a long time. When I say worse, I don't mean bad. They're not going to the NIT. They're going to be in the tournament, but they're not going to the Final Four either. So I think both those teams are teams that potentially could get upset, maybe in that first game, the first round, depending on what line they're on and who they play, but second round for sure. So it's going to be exciting, man. I love tournament time. We'll be going over our tournament brackets coming up here real soon. Even more soon, we're going to bring in Ryan Thomas of Thomas Take, and we'll talk to him with some NFL mailbag questions, and he's got some kind of UFC news he wants to talk about. He's so excited about it yesterday. I'm like, that's fine, Ryan. Just do what you want to do. We'll listen. It's like, you don't have to break it down. Just do what you want to do.
Well, first he's got to have good connection to come on the show.
Well, yeah, I'm asking Dan, is it still going to happen?
It is Ryan Thomas, so he sometimes takes his time. He has Thomas take technical difficulties.
But the invite has been sent. The invite has been sent.
The message before that is, hey, bro, eating dinner. Let me know.
Okay.
Is it a bowl of cereal again?
It might be.
It might be soup.
It might be soup.
Soup.
Yeah, we'll see.
Soup right
Possibly now. Ryan Thomas coming up next. For sure, NFL talk coming up next. You're listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a brand new year. Hey, Dan, huge numbers on the podcast last week, the first one of 2018.
Yeah, I think a lot of people tuned in. They wanted to find out who the fantasy football champion was. And
obviously.
We know.
Could have been the Pick'ems champion. I mean, you're tooting your own horn. Tooting your own horn a little bit there, but the Pick'ems champion can make the people money.
That is true. That is true. Props to Orlando. That clap. So yeah. I mean, podcast numbers look good. We enjoy all the viewers that we have. Keep on coming. And season 3. I mean, I think we've kind of built that audience over time, and now My Fantasy Podcast is just getting out there even more. So we're excited about it.
No doubt. NFL time. It's Case Keenum time. This is for Orlando. I'm gonna mute Dan's mic altogether here, but Case effing Keenum. Dan and Brandon show no love to the man, the myth, the legend, and now he will be in the Super Bowl. 5% of quarterbacks can make the throws he can make. Did you see that unbelievable pass he made to Diggs? I still can't believe that throw. Case effing Keenum. This is from Skull Nation. Eric Feeney. And I finally looked up what Skull was, Dan, because I think a while back I thought they were talking about the tobacco. I'm like, we got a bunch of tobacco. I mean, is chewing tobacco making a comeback here? Skull, but it actually it's part of the fight song of the Vikings, and then even going back to like Norse mythology, some kind of mythological character too. So I had to look that up after this week because we keep getting it. But there you go, Case effing Keenum, Orlando.
Yeah, no, how about it? I mean, speaking of that throw, on that drive, I got the chills. How, I don't know if y'all watch NFL Network very much. I like to watch like the replays and hear the guys, the stuff they say on the field, and they have this great moment of Case Keenum right before that drive where he's just like clapping his hands, and you just hear the whole crowd going skull, skull. But I've been saying, just like I've been saying, Case Keenum, y'all laugh at me. He's not gonna get the MVP, but he should at least get consideration. And week in and week out, I mean, my guy's proving me right.
Yeah, I mean, As far as the final throw, I mean, it wasn't great. I mean, it wasn't an unbelievable throw. I'm all on Orlando's side here about Case Keenum. The Vikings have no problem at quarterback.
No, even if that throw wasn't great, you look at how much time was on the clock? Like a second.
It was a smart play. It was a smart play.
How many other quarterbacks? I mean, besides a guy like Brady or Breeze, are going to make a throw like that under pressure? Honestly,
it was gutsy where he knew Diggs could handle it, but they were really going for field goal position. But once Diggs turned the corner, there's nobody there. Yeah, so let's take it to the house.
Yep, there was rumors that it was a ghost of Prince there who had that block of Marcus Williams, which no one saw, and set up to that great play. That great throw by Case Keenum.
Let me put Dan in a tough situation real quick.
Yep.
Would the Rams be as good this year and done as much as they did if Case Keenum was quarterback all year instead of Jared Goff?
No. Although you never know because maybe Sean McVay, but no, I don't think so. I'm not sold on Case Keenum. This Skull Nation dude, if you watch that throw, I could have made that throw. It was not impressive. It was an average throw. It was about to be an out of bounds play. If Marcus Williams didn't, I still can't describe what he was able to do or not able to do, I should say. But if he just moves a little bit to the left, it's an incomplete pass. If he hits him at the same time that ball gets, he's not catching it. It's inbounds. It's not. There's nothing special about that throw. In Case Keenum, he's doing a good job game managing, but to me, he's not. He's not going to win a Super Bowl. I'll tell you that much.
All I know is I watched him. Memphis was in Conference USA, so I watched Conference USA football, and I've watched Case Keenum that whole time. He only threw for 20,000 yards at Houston with a quarterback rating of 160, throwing on 70% of his passes. And I look at quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins in the NFL right now. I look at quarterbacks that have made a Super Bowl, like Rex Grossman. Case Keenum can play. And they got no problem at quarterback. To be honest with you, to me, Bradford or Bridgewater is not much of an upgrade over Case Keenum, to be honest with you, especially with this defense. You're not asking them to do too much. So if Kirk Cousins can play in the league, if Rex Grossman can play in the league and make the Super Bowl with a defensive-minded team like he did in the Bears, yes, Case Keenum will be just fine. Complete confidence in that dude for Skull Nation. Let's bring in Ryan Thomas Take. He is here. How's it going, bro? Long time no see. Welcome to 2018.
It has been a while. It's a pleasure joining you guys once again.
I wanted to know what you got to say about Skull Nation and Case Keenum. What's your opinion on Case Keenum?
I mean, he's obviously the story of the playoffs, I'd say. I only caught like the last bit of that segment, but the throw was not, a Doug Flutie Hail Mary pass. It was a decent throw. It wasn't, I can't really. That was a bad. I don't even know what that was. Hitting the hit stick too early, Marcus Williams. It's tough. But all jokes aside, Case Keenum has really impressed me throughout this season, and that needs to be recognized.
Completely capable of getting the job done. I mean, you've seen a lot less talented guys do it. And I guess it's from me watching Keenum in college. I mean, dude is sharp. He's accurate. He can make the throws. He's fine, man. He's fine. I'm not saying he's going to be the next coming of Tom Brady or anything like that. I'm just saying he's fine. They didn't really have any kind of drop off at quarterback. And I think that's evident. And I think you'll see that real soon. But thanks, Skull Nation. That was Eric Feeney. Let's move on. Next one comes from Nick Smith Penny. Best coaching hire. Is that where we're at? Yeah. Best coaching hire in the NFL since Black Monday. My pick is Shurmur for the G-Men. Ryan, new guy. What up, dude?
What's up? Yeah, obviously, I know a little bit about this, being that I wrote my last article with My Fantasy Sports Talk was literally grading the coaching hires.
So and you liked Shurmur.
I liked the Shurmur hire, but I'm not going to say that it's the best hire of the season so far. The best hire to me since Black Monday, or just in general, was the return of Chucky, John Gruden. I'm very excited to see what he brings to the table. I think that story is going to be the story of the offseason. Will the Raiders, they were like a sexy pick to do big things last season, or this season, I should say, and they fell flat on their face. Can he get them over that hump? That's the
and
question.
I was totally on the bandwagon of letting Jack Del Rio go. Something had to change, and I think it was head coaching, because they only won half as many games they did this year with the same talent, same players, even adding Marshawn Lynch, than they did last year. And that's coaching to me. That's something going on.
I wrote in the article too that I'm not saying this to sound corny, but if you haven't watched the press conference, I watched the full 47-minute press conference where Mark Davis introduced John Gruden, and they reintroduced him to the Raiders organization. There was something about it that was just so it literally fired me up watching that. And I'm not a Raiders fan, obviously. I'm a Bills fan. I'm from Buffalo, but that press conference, they're playing Hell's Bells. Mark Davis says this is a pretty big effing deal. It was just, I am very excited to see how this pans out. We've never seen a coach that walked away from the league come back and with a team that traded him away. Just the whole story for that. I'd say that's the best hire. I think he has what it takes to reignite the Raider Nation.
Dan, what do you think out of and none of these are really official yet that I know of, but from what the word is around the street right now, what do you think as far as best coaching hire?
Yeah, I definitely like the Gruden one, but the one that I like the best is actually Matt Nagy to the Bears. And I know he got a high grade in Ryan's piece, but just what he was able to do with that Chiefs offense, you learn under a guy like Andy Reid. Now, Andy Reid might not be the best coach, but he knows how to win regular season games. You might crumble at times, but you can learn from his mistakes by working under him, and just the development that he's had with that offense, not only with the running game, Kareem Hunt, but what he's been able to do with Alex Smith has really been impressive to me. And if he can translate that to Mitchell Trubisky, then the Bears already have a pretty formidable defense. So you had a solid quarterback who even can play like Alex Smith, if not better, because Trubisky has the better physical tools, I believe. That potential there for that Chicago offense with the running backs. You need to find some wide receivers that can stay healthy, but a tight end in Adam Shaheen that isn't talked about enough. I like the direction Chicago is headed, and I think Matt Nagy is the type of guy that can get him there.
Orlando, what do you like about coaching hires so far this year?
I like the Josh McDaniel one. I do like the Matt Nagy one, but I like the fact that what y'all mentioned earlier, McDaniel's probably being a better OC rather than a coach. But I think you go from a guy from spending time with a guy like Tom Brady, and you take those tools and you go to a guy who's going to come back healthy and a young stud like Andrew Luck. It's not a bad core that they have going on. You still got Moncrief, T.Y. Hilton. And it was nice to see if McDaniels could let go of Frank Gore and bring in this young guy like Marlon Mack. I think that'll be interesting. And plus that AFC South, Jacksonville is going to be the defensive league. You gotta figure what's going on with the tight ends and the moves they're going to do. And then you got the Texans with Deshaun Watson comes back healthy next year. What they're going to be able to do, I know it's still a bit unproven because we haven't seen it for a full season. But then you get a guy healthy like Andrew Luck back, and they're right back in the mix in that division. So to me, that was probably one of the I'm not going to say best, but one of the more intriguing and interesting coaching moves that I saw.
I'm with Orlando. I like the Josh McDaniels also because I kind of had my eye on him in Tennessee. I just think that type. And I do almost think that he may make a better OC. Some guys are just not fit out for the head role. They're just not, the personalities are not fit out. They're not cut out to handle the vast decision-making that the head coach entails. They're more specialized and they're better in their own field. Josh McDaniels may be that guy. I don't know, but I like what the Colts did because they needed an injection of offense. They needed a blood transfusion, so to speak, particularly with the young franchise quarterback like Tennessee and Mariota, that this thing needs to start getting off the ground. I think the Colts were overall the third worst offense in the league last year. And I understand that Andrew Luck was out, but still, you got to pick that up. You don't go from just third worst offense to really competing just by Andrew Luck coming back, in my opinion. Something was just stuttering there altogether. And I think you just need that injection of offense, and Josh McDaniels does bring that. As far as the Shurmur thing, there's just too many unknowns to me about New York, about Eli's future. What do they do with the draft? That offensive line is horrible. They've got a new GM. What is his focus? What is his vision? There's too much for me to say that, I have full confidence in Shurmur to take off and take the ground running and hit the ground running. So, but a lot to play out there. Let's move on. The next one is from Alex Childs and fits in great with what we just talked about. What do the New York Giants do with the number 2 overall pick in the draft? Do we really take a quarterback? Saquon Barkley? Offensive line? Help. What should we do? What will we do? Alex Childs. Dan, number 2 overall pick. To me, if Saquon Barkley, and who does have the number 1 pick? Cleveland? Is Cleveland going to do the quarterback thing again? But anyway, say Saquon Barkley is available at number 2. You can't take him with that offensive line. That's a complete waste to me.
Yeah, I mean, Saquon Barkley is a game-changing type back, so I can understand why they would want to. Obviously, the Giants have a need. Orleans Darkwa is not a starting running back. Wayne Gallman, that experiment is going to end pretty soon when he's out of the NFL in a couple of years. So I can understand why you would want to. If I were the Giants, I'm trading out of that spot. I'm recouping as many picks as I can get, whether it's this year or first rounders next year. But that number 2 pick is so valuable. We've seen the haul that other teams have gotten by trading back. And if you can do that, maybe still manage a top 10 pick or a top 20 pick, you can look at Connor Williams or Mike McGlinchey, some offensive tackles who can actually protect your quarterback. And I'm not even looking at a quarterback early in this draft if I'm the Giants. I mend that relationship with Eli. It's a new coaching staff, new front office, and I'm letting Eli play a couple more years because I still think with the weapons that you can put around him, as long as you can protect him, you have a chance to win some ball games, and that defense is still that defense. So the Giants aren't far away, to be honest, from being a winning team. They have the skilled position players. They just need to be able to protect them, like you said, with the offensive line.
Yeah, the defense needs help from the offense, to be honest with you, at this point. And I'm fine with Eli. Don't move off of Eli. Don't think about Eli moving on. Eli's fine right now. He's far from your problem. The dude hadn't been hurt. He had the consecutive game streak, so he's fine. And I'm 100% with you, Dan. That's what I had wrote down. Trade out of that pick, but I was going more the direction maybe of a veteran offensive lineman, maybe a stud offensive lineman, a younger guy, just something that maybe you can move in, get a good, solid, valuable offensive lineman to move in there and maybe just trade back a little bit. But I don't know. I know Saquon Barkley is going to be intriguing, and yes, he's a hell of a back, should go high, but to me, that's a waste for him going. I don't wish that upon him to go to New York because they got other issues. They would really have to do a whole lot in free agency for him to make any kind of impact next year at all. Ryan, you're up there pretty close to the situation. What's going on with them G-men?
A lot of the mock drafts that I've read in NFL Network and CBS Sports, and they all have them taking Josh Rosen at 2 overall and at 2nd overall, and I don't really think that that's a good idea because I don't think Josh Rosen is a guy that you take that high. So like you guys were saying, they have a multitude of needs on their team. In multiple areas, the offensive line, the Eli Manning can only do so much. And he was basically the scapegoat for one of the worst head coaches that I've seen in recent memory, who's interviewing with the Cleveland Browns, but that's another argument for another day. But it's just, I think that they need to trade down, acquire as many picks as they can, and fill some holes rather than reaching on a player that I just don't see him as a slam dunk, first quarterback taken off the board.
Yeah, they're more than just one home run second pick away from being competitive, in my opinion, and especially with a whole new regime coming in. You got to build a solid foundation. I mean, for Eli's sake, I mean, whoever your quarterback is, you got to address that offensive line. Then you also got to address Odell's situation. Orlando, what do you think about New York? I mean, they're in your division with your Cowboys there. From an open perspective, for the Giants to get better, what do you think they need to do?
Yeah, no, they're going to have to beef up that line. I don't think quarterback's an option right now because last year they took Davis Webb. They still got Geno Smith. Eli's fine. Just, they got a new front office staff, the coaching. They need to beef up that line because no matter who they have taking snaps under center, they just cannot protect.
Or who they have running the ball.
Or who they have running the ball. But, it was unfortunate what happened to Odell, but they still got a good core. They got a Sterling Shepard there. Their tight end is really good. I don't remember his name, but he was really good this season. So if anything, they got to beef up that line before they get to any other needs on that team.
Yep, they're just more than a couple of pieces away. You're not, especially not an offensive home run. I really think Saquon Barkley should go pretty high in the draft, but I just don't want to see him go to New York, to be honest with you. I would like to see him in a better situation where he can get a little bit more playing time immediately and be a little bit more impactful in year one. We'll see. But all right, so let's talk some more draft here. We're going to move straight on along. And this one comes from our best friends of the podcast. Listen to this. Hey guys, thanks for always showing us love. We appreciate it, and it's a love give and take. We're always telling friends and family about My Fantasy Podcast. It's kind of like our show too, since we're on every week. Just wanted to throw the idea out there for the show. Can you guys do scouting reports on one draft prospect per week? I'm sure you'll be bombarded with draft questions that gives us an average fans a chance to get top-notch info from you guys as draft experts on the show. One guy that intrigues the hell out of me is Lamar Jackson. Thoughts on Mike Vick 2.0? This is from Nick and Judy Pertins. And appreciate the love. Appreciate you for spreading the word. And it is kind of like your show too. But I feel like I need to let you know, as part owners in the show, your dues are coming up pretty soon. The $200 per year. Mail the check to Brandon Reed, Jonesboro, Arkansas, and we'll get you taken care of since you're like part owners. But the dues are due. But yeah, we do appreciate it. Dan, you're the guru here. I mean, if a lot of people are saying that, yes, he could be Michael Vick 2.0. A lot of people have even said his arm is even stronger. There's also the contingent that says that maybe he needs to transition and may have a better, more impactful, better NFL career if he were to move to a wide receiver, which some guys have done, like Terrell Pryor, Antoine Randall, and other guys like that. What do you think, Dan? Is he going to make it as a quarterback, and how high should he go?
So I haven't been able to sit down and scout Lamar Jackson the way I do, all the draft prospects. So I haven't gotten to his tape yet. But just what I've seen in flashes, I mean, I think he's you got to try him out as a quarterback. The one thing that does impress me is he's been able to at least increase his completion percentage, each of his 3 years at Louisville. So you can see that he is taking steps to improve. The arm strength is there without a doubt. Some team is going to fall in love with his athleticism. He's going to be a first-round pick in my eyes. Somebody is just going to like what they see and think that they have this tool that they can use, however they want. So I don't know if he's going to be as impactful as Michael Vick. But I definitely do see him as a quarterback in the NFL. But I really do have to study him before I give an honest, evaluation on him. And then just to answer the Pertin's other question with the video scouting reports, it's something that I briefly mentioned to Brandon, but this is a segment that we're actually going to bring out on Facebook. So we will have video scouting reports. We'll definitely cover the draft on the show, but it's going to be in addition to that. So definitely look for that, on our Facebook page, as you guys always do, as part owners of the show. So we always appreciate it.
There you go. It seemed like every week every Saturday this year, I was getting an ESPN alert. Must watch. Lamar Jackson breaks off 54-yard run. It's like every single week that was going on. So undoubtedly can do it with his leg. And It could be. It's definitely going to be an exciting player, possible franchise-changing player wherever he goes. And there's options. If it doesn't really work out at quarterback, or maybe the team he goes to is a little bit deeper at quarterback, maybe they could do some swing, have him play a little wide receiver. Just get him on the field. He needs to be on the field. Ryan?
Well, I'm about to break my my promise that was on Facebook. Brandon said I can join the show on one condition. I can't talk about the Buffalo Bills.
Don't want to do that.
I'm not going to talk about the Buffalo Bills, but what I am going to do is I'm going to talk about all the Buffalo Bills fans, the people that I talk to, on a daily basis. Whenever, the topic of Tyrod Taylor's ineptitude as a starting quarterback would pop up, which would pop up quite often, especially after that playoff game. Lamar Jackson was a guy that they would use to counteract my point. So, my point of the Bills needing to move on from a running gadget style quarterback, where that's, in my opinion, based on what I've watched of Lamar Jackson, that's what he is. I think it's a little bit of an insult to say to the guy, well, you should change your position. He is a quarterback. He deserves to be respected as such. But I think that when I see him, I see a guy that could have just as many durability problems as anybody at the NFL level. He's small. He doesn't have thick legs, little things like that, in comparison to a guy like, let's just say, Russell Wilson. He's got a big lower body where Lamar Jackson does not. And that would scare me. That would turn me off to drafting him, in the first round. But his athleticism, he can throw the ball very well. As Dan said, one team will fall in love with him, and one team might reach for him in this draft.
Dan, let me ask you real quick. Deshaun Watson showed brilliant flashes this year. Is Lamar Jackson better than Deshaun Watson potentially in your eyes?
No. As a runner, yes, but as a passer, as an actual quarterback, no.
There you go. So, and we saw what happened, unfortunately, and that's where my whole fantasy season went down the tubes, guys.
Blame it on that.
It was.
Not the champ. Don't blame it on the champ.
Something. No, it was something. It wasn't me. Yeah, it was kind of me. Horrible draft. But anyway, he had a good 3 weeks or a month or so, and then bam, injury. And how do we know some of these guys? Like the example I keep bringing up was Antoine Randall, because he was a hell of a quarterback in Indiana in his day, but he instantly transitioned to wide receiver and had a hell of a long, great career in Pittsburgh as a receiver. So maybe you think about that. To be honest with you, the durability issues Ryan mentions, that you got to be smart about it too. If I can tell you, you can have 4 or 5 pretty good years playing quarterback in the NFL, or you can have 11 or 12 as a wide receiver and make a lot more money, what would you rather do?
That's a fair point. It's just me, for the sake of the debate that I would have with Bills fans, they'd say, well, maybe we need to get Lamar Jackson. Maybe he's the mobile, agile athlete quarterback that would be an upgrade to Tyrod Taylor. Frankly, they're right on that point. You can't, get much worse than that, in my opinion. But I couldn't see myself as a GM using a first round pick on him. Unless I have a quarterback that might have one foot out the door, which could be like Pittsburgh, or, a team that might need a quarterback, heir to someone that's got one foot out the door. Pittsburgh, New Orleans.
Pittsburgh took a chance on Josh Dobbs, right? I mean, if Josh Dobbs was willing to or able to hang on to a roster spot, Lamar Jackson sure as hell is.
I would agree with that, but he seems like a great guy, and he seems like he works hard, definitely prepares hard. I just couldn't. I would have a question about his durability. That's the thing.
I think Mike Vick got really lucky. It takes some luck in the NFL. I'm not questioning any of these guys' ability. I'm just saying it takes some luck, because in the NFL, defenses like to hit the quarterback hard. Okay. And look at like RG3, who was kind of a running quarterback. He's gone. He's out of the NFL, guys. I mean, he may linger around a roster, but he's done. And it happened just like that. So, all right, it's scary. It's scary. I think all the talent is there, but it's definitely scary to invest that much in a guy like that. So unless you, like I said, quickly turn him into like a two-way player and have him working out as a receiver from day one. So we'll see what happens. But I tell you what, let's move on. And by the way, Ryan, before we move off this too far and get too far down the road and talk UFC, is I wanted to mention your piece that came out this week, grading the head coaching hires. So great work on that. But I wanted to mention, because the last part of that, your curveball segment, I 100% agree with you. I think retaining Marvin Lewis was probably the best thing for Cincinnati. I know it doesn't have a great track record, but you look at some of these teams that keep the revolving door of coaches going around, they ain't going nowhere. They're not going anywhere. And at least Cincinnati is keeping the continuity in the locker room. And I think
sorry about that.
No, he's a good dude. He's a good dude and a good coach.
Yeah, the way I wrote it out was that this, crop of head coaching candidates were not, the A-list guys. McDaniels was mulling whether he would come back as a head coach. Matt Patricia, I think there's a lot to be, proven there. That he's a first timer, but there wasn't a lot of flashy names available. And for Cincinnati, extending him for 2 years allows them to kind of figure out where they are at the end of that 2 years as a franchise and say, well, we gave him 2 more years. Can he win us a Super Bowl, which is obviously the ultimate goal? And if he can't, then they move on. It's really it's a win-win for everybody. Even if it doesn't work out, Marvin Lewis got his shot, and he's highly respected around the National Football League, and he's respected amongst his players.
What's crazy, because several weeks ago, before the season ended, the last few weeks of the season, we were all sitting around the podcast saying, no way Marvin Lewis is retained. He's got to be gone now. It's been, 9, 10, 11 years? I don't know how many ever years he's been there. But now I kind of refocus and kind of let the dust settle. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably the best move for Cincinnati, just to retain him instead of taking a gamble on another young coach or someone inexperienced and starting all over, in which – I think if you got your players sold in the locker room, that's more than half the battle. Then you just got to perform. But the other part of that was you graded the Buccaneers an F for retaining Dirk Cutter, and I 100% agree with that. I seen that. No. That didn't work.
I just cannot. It baffles me. Like, for all the reasons I stated, but I watched, and obviously Hard Knocks, it's edited. They show what they want to show.
But still didn't look good for Dirk Cutter.
No, it still looks as if this guy is kind of he was just a guy that had success with Winston, and they were just like, well, we'll promote you. We'll see where you go. And
their quarterback coach that I forgot. He did well. The quarterback coach, I forgot his name, but I don't like that quarterback coach either. He didn't look like he was very good in the locker room or very good to sit down in a meeting room with.
And I shared the article, and there were a few fans. I have a friend, Cody, that's a huge Bucs fan, and he said that I took a shot at Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston has a heck of a lot of talent, but if I was the Bucs and I was picking first overall, I like Mariota more. It's just a preference. I think Mariota's a heck of a quarterback with limited talent around him, whereas Jameis Winston has a lot of talent around him, and he's been inconsistent. And I do think that's not all of it as well. So if they were to just move on from Dirk Cutter and get a true quarterback guru type coach, I think Winston, the sky's the limit for the kid. But that's not the case, unfortunately.
And he had a shoulder injury. I believe it was shoulder that he was dealing with this year. It wasn't 100%. Missed like 5 or 6 games or so. But to me, the head guy is a lot about personality. I talked about it before. You're juggling so many different things, whereas a coordinator, some guys are just better being coordinators because you can sit down, focus on your task at hand. You're not worrying about every aspect of the team. And some guys just don't have the personality or the project management, the multitasking skills to deal with that. Just plain and simple. That's it. Before you even step on one practice field, some guys just don't have that. And from what I've seen, I'm not sure Dirk Cutter has that. And
I did watch. If people are like, oh, well, did you watch any Tampa Bay Bucs games? I watched a few, to be honest. And the decision making, like the situational decision making that he made was just bad.
Almost as bad as Andy Reid.
Yeah. So. But yeah, thanks for the compliment. I'm
Yeah,
glad you
great
enjoyed
piece
that.
there. Yeah, great
Yeah.
piece there. That was where a lot of my research came from on this particular topic as far as head coaching. But when I saw the curveball segment, 100% agree with that, with the Marvin Lewis retention and keeping Dirk Cutter. So, but I'll tell you what, we're going to do you a favor and talk some UFC coming up next. You're listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Brandon Reed, Dan Schalk, Orlando Torres, and Ryan Thomas of Thomas Take is here to drop the UFC report. So you said you got some stuff to talk about. So I was going to let you go. Orlando can chime in here with you on the UFC. Me and Dan will maybe just take a little bit of backseat as we don't keep up with UFC as much. So you tell me what's going on in UFC.
This is not a UFC report. This is a UFC bombshell. Within this week, I'm hearing, and it's now being more widely reported, that the UFC could very well strip Conor McGregor of the UFC lightweight title, as the fight that was intended to be the number one contender fight, the fight that Conor would face the winner of while he was defending the belt. The tide has changed. It's now that fight, and Conor faces the winner of that fight, Tony Ferguson versus Khabib, for his title that is about to be stripped, that could quite possibly be stripped from him this week. So the first time in UFC history, where a champion was stripped of not one but two titles. Granted, he was the champ. He won two titles in two different weight classes. No one has ever done it. No one has ever held two titles simultaneously in the UFC, but the legacy ends kind of with a thud for him as a champion, because there's a huge risk in all of this. There's a risk that if they strip the belt away from him and he faces the winner of Tony versus Khabib, who I think in that matchup, Khabib will win that matchup, there's no guarantee that Conor is going to beat Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's a terrible matchup for Conor McGregor, and I've been saying that for 3-4 years now. So there's a lot to digest with that, and it's obviously the biggest headline. It'll be the biggest headline of this year so far, being that Conor McGregor's the biggest name that the sport has ever had, and it's not even close. I mean, I'm a giant MMA fan, and guys like George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva and John Jones, they're all revered, and even Ronda Rousey, despite the ending of her career, they're all revered and looked back on as all-time greats, but nobody has transcended the sport that like Conor has. It's he fought the money fight. He fought Floyd Mayweather. Did anybody think that was going to happen? I sure didn't. And he was able
back
to
up
talk his way to that fight.
Why is the strippage? Why are we talking about this? Because he's holding out for maybe another boxing event, or what?
Actually, it's mainly due to the fact that he wants to come back in September. And UFC President Dana White said that's too long. Typically, it's actually a athletic commission by athletic commission rule that if a champion doesn't defend his belt within 12 months, the organization that he fights for has the right to strip him. So he won the title off of Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205 back in November of 2016. He had the Money Mayweather fight in August of 2017. And here we are in January of 2018. And he is still yet to defend that title. So, for once, actually,
too busy spending money.
Well, there was talk too that possibly, and this is far fetched, but then again, after seeing the fight with Mayweather, I wouldn't be surprised if it would happen. That they were trying to set up a fight between Mayweather and Pacquiao, which in my eyes would be ridiculous because I think Pacquiao would tear him up. So I don't know.
You mean McGregor and Pacquiao?
Yes, and they were targeting April, which we're already in January, headed towards February. That's not going to happen. But whatever's going on behind doors, that wouldn't surprise me if a fight like that would happen, because I think just McGregor's mind is just in a different place, especially when he got that big payday from that Mayweather fight. And it's nothing against the UFC, but compared to what those guys get, to what McGregor knows, hey, I can go out there and get this. I could come out there, make a movie or something, besides fighting, because McGregor already kind of built that brand for himself. So what Ryan was saying, I just don't think McGregor's mind is in mixed martial arts anymore.
I would agree with that, and not only that, it's a very tough situation because he got into the sport to make money. No one wants to get punched in the face for a living making peanuts. So he climbed the ladder. He said what he was going to do. He did it, and then he got the biggest money fight that he could possibly get. But my opinion on the matter, just of being a fan of his since the beginning, he earned this role on his own. But with that comes the fact that you're the biggest name in the sport. It's your turn to somewhat give back to the UFC, because the UFC helped put him on the pedestal that he is currently on. The UFC marketed him. The UFC put him in the suits, and they put him behind the camera or in front of the camera, and they built him up to where he is today. So I get both. I get your point there too, Orlando, that he's made too much money, and realistically, he'll never make a payday like that in the UFC. But they have offered him a more than fair deal with the sponsorships that he has, with the sponsorships that they allow him to have, and he still said, I can't come back till September. I think that the guy, and more power to him, after the Mayweather fight, he went out, he partied as much as he could, ate whatever he wanted, and I think he's out of shape. I think that's and he's just getting back into training, since September. That's a long time that you're kind of just sitting around, enjoying the fruits of your labor with your girlfriend and your baby, and his life is just
that's where I would be. Y'all wouldn't hear from me again if I made that kind of money. I don't care.
Yeah, true, but I would like to see kind of what Ryan said. He owes it to the fans as well, because a lot of his fans supported him from from his first, one of the.
But where does it
first
end?
fights with Max Holloway?
How many more fights do you want him to fight, though? I mean, where does it end?
I mean, the guy's still in his prime. He still has a long career. If we're speaking like that, I just don't think he's going to do it. But I think he's going to want another fight or a big fight coming up, because I follow him in social media, and all those cars he's buying, all those steaks he's eating, and that money ain't going to last him forever.
No, the money will run out when you have. I don't care how much money you have. When you have money, you spend it. That's in any way of. I mean, that's just how life is. But what people are missing the boat on completely, and I think Orlando would agree with me on this one. The fact is that he doesn't need a title to validate himself, but if they want him to come back, the only fight, in my opinion, that will put him in a UFC cage is with George St. Pierre. Be the biggest fight in UFC history, the biggest fight in MMA history. It would sell just a crazy amount. It might even rival a top 5 all-time boxing pay-per-view. That fight would be massive, because you'd have the King of Ireland versus the King of Canada. Oh my God, dude, I get chills just thinking about it.
I get chills thinking about hot soup.
Oh man,
in the wintertime. All right.
Silly.
Thanks for the UFC report. You got your Buffalo Bills talk in. You got your UFC talk. So we fulfilled your obligations.
I didn't talk about the Bills. I talked about their fans. There's a difference.
I am not quite sure. Yeah, you bent the rules there, kind of like Dan bends their fantasy league rules. But
yeah,
too
many championships.
All right, so let's wrap it all up and talk about food on podcast, as we have been doing as of late. And Tony Campanara noticed that. So Tony Campanara says, I listen to your show usually every week, and I have to say the random food talk is killer. Do people actually ask you about food? I have one if allowed. Favorite soup? I got to go with pasta fagioli.
Fagioli.
I'm sorry. I should have just passed that off to you, Dan. Fagioli?
It's not even Italian.
Okay. And what? An Italian guy in New Hampshire. It warms you up right up on a cold-ass day, which seems to be like every day now. Tony Campanaro. So real quickly, guys, I just had on my list is I kind of like spicy stuff. I don't really like creamy soups. So chicken tortilla, taco soup, something like that. Fire roasted tomato soup, something like that. Something spicy, more of a tomato base, or a gumbo. Love a good gumbo if that qualifies as soup. But something like, not a huge soup connoisseur, but I've always heard about that mulligatawny that you can get up there in New York.
Yeah. New York has some good soup, but the champ has a favorite restaurant here in New York, right by the Bills Stadium. It's called Danny's, and what Buffalo is also known for is chicken wings. And Danny's makes the best chicken wing soup you could ever have in your life.
And so when you say the champ, can you clarify for people at home who the hell are you talking about?
The guy who wins everything. Danny's, and I mean that just speaks for the name itself. Chicken wing soup, and on top of it all, what makes it even better is the restaurant is a soup and salad bar, so it's unlimited trips, and they always have 4 different soups, but you got to go right to the chicken wing, and it's a buffalo chicken wing in your mouth. And I know it's tough for you guys down in Arkansas and Texas, because I don't know if you've actually had a buffalo chicken wing, like a buffalo from Buffalo. That is one thing that we do right up here. We don't do football right. We don't do hockey right. We don't do a lot of things, but we can make some damn chicken wings. And
let me tell you that actually,
and that's how you go.
That actually does sound really good. But I've never thought I would say this about a foodie question on this, but that was such a homer pick. That was such a homer pick on a foodie question.
I don't even like Buffalo. I hated it. But you start out talking about the champ. Well, that's me.
It's a place called Danny's. Danny's place. Okay, moving on. What else is up in New York beside the homer pick, Ryan?
Man, this is out of all the questions that we've got today, I think that this might be the toughest one. You know what? I'm a simple guy. I like just plain food. But in terms of soups, I mean, you'd have to go with the tomato soup with grilled cheese. Nothing is better.
Simple.
The soup
That's
is
almost
nice
like
and hot.
You combine those two things, it's almost like pizza.
Yeah, it's so good, and I've had it even when I'm sick. I've had it when I'm not sick. Sometimes there's certain soups that you can only have when you're sick. That's not one of them. You can have that anytime.
Well, Orlando may agree with me being there in San Antonio with something like a chicken tortilla, some kind of taco soup right there. What are your favorites, Orlando?
Okay, well, I was going to go a little bit outside the box rather than just beef stew or something like that, chicken soup. There's a noodle house that every time I visit Austin, I go to Austin quite a bit. It's a Vietnamese noodle house. It's called Pho Sage. And for those people listening that are in Texas or that ever stop by and visit Texas sometime, if you ever stop in Austin, it's on North Lamar, not too far from UT. And they make some of the best damn noodles. But there's a soup. It's a beef pho soup. But, just the meat they put in it, I know they put a little bit.
What is the meat they put in it?
It's just beef. It's beef.
Kitty cat?
Right? I mean, it could be kitty cat. It just tastes good. That's all I know. At that point, I don't ask where it came from or what it is.
Maybe you ought to start.
Maybe I ought to start, but you know what? They keep folks coming back because that place is always packed. They put oxtail sauce in it, onions, cilantro, lime juice, have cinnamon in there. Oh my! It is a good noodle house. I always got to stop in there. And I need to go. I'm about to head to Austin right now after this podcast. You got me talking about it.
Do they have on their menu the same slogan you got on your shirt? Don't worry about it. Just do it.
Just do it. Just don't ask what's on your plate. Just eat it.
I got another one. It just popped into my head. When I went to Philly in July. I actually had Philly cheesesteak soup. Try that. Philly. That was pretty awesome.
That does sound good. All right, that's it. There's your foodie talk. There's all your NFL talk, your NBA talk, your college talk, your UFC talk. We covered it all. So thanks for joining us for another week. Keep the hits coming. Keep watching every single week. Keep doing like the Purtons and spread the word. Every time you're at a family gathering, a picnic, or any kind of party, spread the word and talk about that My Fantasy podcast. You got to check it out. So much love there. So we'd appreciate it. But My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. Check out the website. A lot of stuff going on the entertainment side. Your playoffs going on. Our championship NFL picks will be up on the site. Probably by the time you see this podcast for sure. So check that out and check out everything else going on in the world of sports on myfantasysportstalk.com. And keep looking for those changes and keep submitting your feedback as far as changes go that you would like to see on the podcast or the website. We'd appreciate it. Well, thanks for Ryan Thomas for joining us on the podcast out of Buffalo today. And our man Orlando Torres out of San Antonio. And
Skull.
It's a Skull Nation. Thanks for checking in, guys.
Case Keenum is better than Tyrod.
For my co-host Dan Chalk, I am Brandon Reed. See you next week. Later. Peace.